Hello, my name is Abna Usua. Thank you for joining We Need to Talk today. As always, please remember that you subscribe to our channel. If you're watching us on Facebook or on Instagram, please go over to YouTube on Owusua TV. Again, it's Owusua TV. Owusua is OWUSUA. Again, it's OWUSUA. Owusua TV on YouTube. And please remember to subscribe. Kindly share the link so that others will also join in into the show today. So, as always, anytime you see me live on We Need to Talk, everything on me from head to toe is African. My outfit is made by O&O Signature. If you like to purchase anything from O&O Signature, please contact us at 469-769-2306. Again, it's 469-769-2306. You can follow O&O Signature on Instagram and on Facebook at OO Signature. Again, it's OO Signature. All right, so we're about to get this show started. Today, we are talking about something that is very controversial, but I'm so sure that at the end of the show, we are going to see things from a different point of view. So let me go ahead and introduce my guest. I'm just gonna mention his name, but he's gonna give us his full name, and then he's gonna tell us a little bit about him so we can get familiar with him before he tells us what he has for us today. So, Mr. Oscar, you want to introduce yourself to my guest?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Kojo Srebo, even though government name is Oscar Srebo, but I prefer to be called Kojo. Originally, I am Ghanaian, background origin, but I was born in Europe, in Italy to be precise. I was born and partly raised there, all the way up until I was 12. The age of 12, my parents, my family, we all came over here to America from Italy. Well, first we transferred in Ghana. We stayed in Ghana for a few months before coming to America, where we first got to Massachusetts, Worcester to be exact. And from Worcester, about a year, spent about 10 months before moving to Atlanta permanently, which is where I grew up, is my playground. I've done everything there. Went to school, made a lot of friends there. Basically that was my life before I moved out of there recently, came to Dallas. I attended, high school, middle school, and college there as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
Okay, I don't think you mentioned much about your family. So, do you have like siblings, your parents?
Yes, so I have 4 other siblings. I'm the oldest one, so we are 5 in all, and they're all in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, and you said you went to school in Georgia too, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what did you do in school? What degree?
So I went for business admin for my undergrad.
Okay, so what do you do for a living now?
To IT.
Okay, so why did you graduate with a business degree but you're working in IT?
Well, school wasn't really my forte coming out of high school. I actually didn't want to go to school, but my parents influenced me, or I guess they persuaded me to go, and pursue an education, get educated. So I just did the most common, the most simplest thing that I could find myself doing without, really struggling. And that's why I chose the business admin.
Okay, so why IT now?
It's the hardest thing to do right now. It's one of the highest paying industry after medical, if not the same as medical.
Okay.
And it's very fun once you get in it and you actually don't understand what you're doing.
Okay, so you're doing it for the money?
Money and the passion as well.
Okay, all right. Okay, I think we've mentioned a whole lot about you. So now we're gonna get on to our topic. So today we are talking about the N word, and I know that there's this icky feeling when we mention the N word or when we hear the N word, and we're gonna discuss about how they see us versus how we put ourselves there as. So now we're gonna start from like Africans versus African Americans. So we know that in the sight of people that are out there, sir, they when other race or other ethnicities see black people, they see us all the same. But amongst us, the blacks, there are differences. To you, what are some of the differences between us and African Americans?
Well, as a whole, if you look at us like physically, first impression, we're all the same, black people. I'm talking about. But when you come among us, from our accents, our various backgrounds, our geographical backgrounds, I would say, our cultures, the way we're brought up, you can definitely tell a difference, between us. Just like a Black American and a true African, you can tell, some differences between them.
You said,
Even though we share a lot of similarities, we are still sort of different
okay.
between us. So.
Okay, so what are some of the similarities since you just mentioned that?
Um, First and foremost, the physical features, like let's say from the woman, right?
Uh-huh.
Black women are, known to be very curvy and very.
When you hold on, slow down. Like just to make sure that our audience are understanding everything that we are talking about, I think we should use specific terminologies for each of these groups that we are talking about. When you say a black ladies, Africans are black ladies and African Americans are black ladies. So who specifically are you
Yeah,
talking about?
black is the whole race,
Okay.
the whole race of black people.
Okay. All right.
I mean, we still share, sort of the same, genes and same DNA
Okay.
to some degree. So when I say black, I completely mean like the whole black race.
Okay.
So when I say black, it could be like a Haitian, Jamaican, African American, Ghanaian, Nigerian. I'm just speaking in general
Okay.
term
Okay.
of black.
Of the black race.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as I was saying, black women are known to be, very curvy, very endowed. Black men are known to be, very, strong. I'll say, very, how should I say, very decisive in terms of, the things and the ways that they, that they go about their lifestyle. Um, Very outspoken, majority of them.
Okay.
And yeah, those are just some of the similarities. But when you come, in terms of the differences as well, probably as I mentioned earlier, geographical background, where we come from, the culture, some of the things, that we grew up doing, grew up listening to, uh, the way our parents, brought us up, and well, basically just the geographical, backgrounds where we come from is, the similarities that, we can definitely pinpoint when
Okay.
you're talking about black people.
Okay. All right. Okay. So now we know some of the similarities and some of the differences amongst the black, which is the African Americans and the Africans. And when we talk about African Americans and Africans, I mean in terms of terminology to everybody else that is outside, every black person living in America is an African American. But when we mention African Americans specifically to this show, we are talking about those that are descendants of slaves that lives in America. And then we talk about Africans who are like those that are immigrants that migrated to America from Africa voluntarily, not by slavery. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, we both grew up in African homes, and I know that there is this like most parents have this fear or they have this ill feelings towards their children, especially those that are in high school, associating or befriending African Americans. Why do you think that is so?
Well, first and foremost, I probably want to, um, I guess, blame pop culture, how the media portray black people, how, black people bring light to themselves, I'll say.
Okay.
Certain lifestyles, certain choices that they make, the way, as I said, they portray themselves in movies and in the media. I
Okay.
guess that kind of influence, African parents to, I guess, kind of want their children to disassociate themselves from black people or, I guess, Akatas or African Americans.
Okay. All right. So to you that's been in high school that has, let me just ask this first. You've befriended African Americans before.
Yes, a lot of my, if not all of them, all of my friends in high school were, Akata.
Well, Akata people. And now that you mention it, you're kind of jumping ahead of me in this conversation because I wanted us to take it point by point. But here you are using the terminology Akata. But before we get to that word itself, now you have friends. You had friends that were African Americans in high school, right? So, what did you experience with them in your high school age or in your high school years? Was it like would you say what your parents were saying was right, or would you say it was the opposite, or
Well,
was what
some
was it
things were true.
like?
Well, I did kind of get, I was kind of made fun of, first when I first came over here,
Okay.
from Europe. There was a particular term that I'm sure that a lot of, African children can associate themselves with
Relate to.
or relate to is the African booty scratcher term
Okay.
that a lot of them use for us. I don't know to them if it was ignorance or a term of like a joke, for us, but to us it was kind of offensive. Me personally, at first, I did find it offensive and it made me angry or mad.
Okay.
But as time went on, I kind of adapted to it because once you actually get to know or understand who they are, they're African American people that are very jovial,
Okay.
especially the ones that you meet in school. They like to joke around and clown around a lot.
Okay.
Some of them, they don't really take their education or their academic life very seriously. So, they see school or they come to school just, as a place for entertainment and associate with other people.
Okay.
Whereas maybe other groups or ethnicities, come to school for, a better life and, pursue a better academic life and beyond.
Okay, so from what you were saying, then our parents were somewhat right for not wanting like their children associating themselves with African Americans, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So now you use the term akata. What is an akata, or who is an akata person?
Well, Akata is, as you mentioned, is a black American or African American. But the term itself, originally it means it's a wild cat
Okay,
or a cat that is, doesn't live in its environment or an undomesticated cat.
okay,
So I guess the correlation between that and, black Americans is that, they've been taken away from Africa because they are Africans after all. No matter how much you try to disassociate themselves from us, they are still a part of us, but they've just been stripped of, everything that they once knew, everything that they once were, their names, their identity, their culture, the food that they used to eat. They've been kind of stripped from all of it. So I guess that's why, it was a term that was first brought about in Nigerians, the Yoruba people, that first started calling them as Akata or associated them as Akatas.
okay. But now when we use that term akata, does it is it what does it suggest?
Black American, African American.
In a positive or in a negative light?
It can mean you could use it as a negative term or as a positive term. Like for example, my siblings, right? The twins, they have a lot of Akata people, Akata friends that they go to school with. But when they I guess use that terminology, they're not using it as a negative light. They're actually implementing that they have a lot of Black American friends. But instead of using Black American or African Americans, they'll just say Akata because it's much shorter, for them to say.
Okay, but they're younger. Okay, so let's talk about like a generalized idea of anakata. Like if an African person says anakata, like if they converse with one another and say, "Oh, the Akata person did this," what do they suggest, or like what is the thing that follows right after that word is used?
Okay, so there's a lot of stereotypes that black people. Every racial ethnicity group has some sort of stereotypes that goes along with them, whether it's positive or negative. So when like they'll use a kata term, maybe to associate them with something that they're commonly to do, or they're very known well to do, then I guess they'll be understanding. You understand why they'll be using the term kata.
Okay, all right. So now let's come down to. I just wanted to make a point and tell me if you agree or not. In most situations, when an African parents use the term akata, well, it suggests something negative, and it has been done so much to a point where, like in a mind of a young African child, when you hear the terminology akata, it's almost like something below what is expected of you. Do you agree or not?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
because growing up, my parents, they're both African, from Ghana.
Uh-huh.
whenever they use that term, they were just implying a person that is not African or African immigrant, predominantly a Black American or African American
Okay.
is what they implied the word to be. But they weren't trying to make that word to be,
Negative.
negatively or, make them less, than us. They were just implying that it's, African Americans who were not Africans.
Prior to us like starting the show today, when I said, "Oh, Akata," and like some of the young people that were in the room, they were like, they made a face, and then when I asked, they said, "Cause when a parent says the word Akata, the next things that are gonna follow, or the
Yeah,
next."
all the stereotypes that goes with the, with Akata, every negative, portrayal in the media and in pop culture is gonna go right ahead and follow that. But I mean, a lot of Africans also use that term to, I guess, associate them or I guess differentiate them from us, African immigrants who didn't grow up in America or who maybe have migrated from Africa to America at a very young age.
So, when you go out into our communities, our Ghanaian communities, and then they distinguish among like even the children there. They can classify a group of them as, oh, these ones they are Ghanaians, but these ones are Akata. Even though they are not African American, like those ones that they are referring to as Akata people are still like children of immigrants. What are they suggesting? If you said you don't agree that when they use that terminology they're trying to be negative or they're trying to say that they're less than expected, but so when they use that term for their own children, what are they suggesting?
They may be suggesting that they see a lot of similarities and, a lot of behavioral patterns that are associated with somebody who may be Black American or African American or something that is, related to pop culture. That is why they may be labeling them as that.
And is that something good that they're referring to, or is that bad?
It's not always negative. Sometimes it can be also
Majority is
positive.
what?
Like let's say if you find an African immigrant or African child imitating like a hip hop rapper or a very notable, hip hop, figure in, entertainment, and they're trying to, assimilate what they're doing, then, maybe their fellow friend will come behind them and say, hey, look at this Akata. I say, hey, Sha Akata anyway. It doesn't mean that maybe, they're portraying them in a negative light, but they're just saying that, he's trying to be like this person who happens to be Akata. So let's say if I was, rapping like, let's say like Tupac or Biggie, and you just may have, seen me in the room rapping like them, and you come behind me and say, hey, look at this Akata. It doesn't necessarily mean that,
You're being negative.
I'm being negative. It
I,
just means that you're, just happening to be, copying the lifestyle of, this popular figure.
okay, your point taken and received well. But then in our homes, you don't typically see like these young ones rapping or portraying something from music videos, as you mentioned. But yet, parents still call them, or like they will say, this child is an Akata child.
When you talk about parents, I
I'm
would
talking
probably
about African
African
parents.
parents, yes. When you talk about our parents, the older generation, they come from a very, very, very different, background and lifestyle. Them having grown up, in Africa, which is a completely total different society than it is here in America. So of course, when they come over here and they see, their children, their offspring, behaving in a particular pattern, in a particular way to something they're not accustomed to, of course they're going to behave, in a typical manner or, you know, in a way that it's not very. I guess it's not something they're very used to seeing. You know, so maybe for them when they all call the children akata, it means something that is unusual to them that they haven't seen before. Especially coming from them, or something they wouldn't expect their children to follow suit.
So essentially, you're coming down to my point, saying that when an African, like when a typical African, use that terminology akata, there is certain expectation that's not met of that person, and that's why we use that term. Like they are not. they are not the
Well,
ideal
there's
African or the person.
every I want to say every racial ethnicity. I guess there is certain level of expectations that every racial ethnicity, I guess aims at or is looking to get at. For prime example, let me say, okay, this is a very I guess famous stereotype with the Asian community. Asians are known to be very smart when it comes to academic life and education. So for a parent, to I guess expect their children, or their child to be a student, I guess that's probably like the norm, right? Because that's the area of of shine. That's the area
Strength.
which they shine the most. So if an Asian kid comes home with grades less than that what's expected of them, then I don't know what stereotype the parents like to use, the Asian parents like to use for their children, but I'm sure there's going to be a negative stereotype because what is expected of them is not being met. So the same thing could be also for the African community.
So, okay. But the point of even addressing this topic here today is because when parents or like when anybody in the society, in the African society, makes those type of comments, it suggests something to us, just as you said, you are not meeting expectation. And we use this terminology that we classify these people as for you. So indirectly you're suggesting or you're saying that this group of people are people that don't meet expectation. These group of people are people that are not up to par. These group of people are not the ideal way that we want you to be. But this is how, because you have shortcomings or because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, and that basically means that, I mean, you're being negative, don't you think? If you're suggesting that in the terms that
Well,
you're using.
I wouldn't say that because just like every tree you have good tree, I mean good apples, and then you have rotten apples, right? So of course, if I was a rotten apple, um, and I was a parent, I wouldn't want my child to be associated with that rotten apple. I want it to be associated with a fruitful fruit that's growing and blossoming on the tree. So in the same manner, when you're looking at your children, and just let's put aside the Akata people for a moment, okay? And you bring in maybe Hispanic kids who may not be excelling in life, and it just so happens that your children are friends with them, and your parents seeing that from a distance that this child, if I let him hang around with this Hispanic kid or with this white kid who is not taking their lives very seriously, of course I'm not going to want my African child to be associated with them. So I don't think it really has, something to do with Akata people per se, even though, pop culture portrays them, to be such a negative, model, I guess, role model in society. I think it just has to do with, the parents wanting the best for their children.
I agree 100% with everything that you said, but the point or the purpose for this show is to educate, especially as Africans, and mostly our parents, because like you said earlier, they find themselves in an environment which is way different than what they are accustomed to, and the values and the morals and the lifestyle and culture are all different. It's like on the extreme ends, and some of the ways that they see things, even when they don't tell the kids or they don't tell their children, it implies something in the mind of the child. And I'm saying that because for a very long time, for me, you've shared your experience and you said your parents used those terminologies in a way that wasn't negative. But for me, in the society, in the community that I find myself in, not within my home but outside, like in the bigger Ghanaian community, when we say, "Oh, these Akata people," or like that Akata person, it's almost always in a negative light. So it gives like some type of mindset about them, not even bringing in what pop culture says about these group of people. but what the parents say is like, oh, if your parent called you out and said, or if an adult in the society called you out and said you are a kata, you know that you missed something. You didn't do something right. And so when I see this group of people that are referred to as that by these same Africans, that means that we don't even give them that regard as they deserve. We have this negative feeling about them, but they're not all like that. Just like you said, there are good apples and bad apples. There are good Africans and there are bad Africans. There are some that portray themselves in lives that nobody would want their child to be. And like across for every other race, there are people that are in those races that portray themselves in such that way. But with African Americans or these people, these Akata people, to the rest of the world, we are all the same. But to us Africans, or to even them African Americans, we are different because of the way we portray each other. And I'm not even gonna get into how they see us because we don't have anybody to like fully represent them. But me and you sitting here and with the audience that are watching, I just wanted to just say, like, bring this conversation on just to get them to think that, okay, maybe when I do this or when I say this, this is what is perceived, like this is what is being received by the others that are hearing me. So if you're a parent or if you're an African anywhere, when you're using the term akata, please remember that these are like, this is a group of people mixed with good and bad, just like Africans are mixed with good and bad. But you can't suggest all the time that they are like bad or they don't meet expectations or anything like that, because that's not how it is. So now we're gonna move on to like something that is more controversial. The word, the N word, the ER and the A. And then we have, so I'm gonna say it just because we're on this show and somebody probably would not. I don't want to be speaking in code for somebody to be wondering what are they talking about. But we have Negro and we have nigger, right? What's the difference between the two?
Well, Negro is black. Um, the term Negro, I mean, anybody that's, of African origin, anybody that's, African descent or that is black, melanated is a Negro. Whether you like it or not, it's a fact. I mean, you and I are Negroes.
Okay.
But when you translate and you go into, the other dimension of the word nigger, the ER, that's a very derogatory term. That was used, for us, from way back in the slave days, that, colonizer used for, our forefathers and foremothers to, I guess, demean them, make them feel less than human,
Okay.
which worked very well. But then you also have the nigga, the other term,
With a N.
Nigga, which is, heavily, used in pop culture, especially in hip hop, among African Americans and even Africans.
You really like going ahead of me in the conversation, don't you?
I'm sorry.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, so that term, from the root of it, is a negative word. It's a negative term that was used to degrade people, right? Now, I have a lot of question about this. So something that was used to degrade and demean people, why then does within the pop culture, like especially in the music industry, you hear these um, top musicians, top artists, top rappers, and hip hop artists constantly using these words to glorify themselves. And that's not just it. Like, even for the females, you hear them using the B word, you hear them using the H word. Why is that? Are they suggesting that it's okay for us to go by those words?
Well, for starters, when you think about hip hop, rap music as a whole, rap is an art. Okay, it's a way of expressing yourself. That was the origin, I guess, the purpose of the music itself. It was a way for you to rap is poetry, right?
Okay.
When you listen to the lyrics, they're supposed to rhyme with each other. They're all rhymes. So I guess it's a way. It was considered as a way for someone, for the artist, to express themselves on how to feel about a certain topic, a certain discussion, or a certain emotion that we're currently feeling at the moment. So when you talk about the pop culture and that's associated with the Nigga term. I guess it's a way for the artist or the rapper or the musician to, I guess, express of what they're going through. Um, the Nigga, the term itself, is, I guess, it has gotten appropriate over the years,
Has
especially since the late 80s and 90s, when Run DMC, the group, the hip hop group, came out and I guess made it as a way to appropriate themselves and call each other in a positive light as opposed to, the negative light. Because, the Nigger, the nigger, which was used for, slaves back in the days by colonizers and slave owners. It was, as you said, it was meant to degrade us. But I guess they transformed the word into Nigga, I guess, to appropriate it and, make us, within us, in ourselves, black people, make us feel, I guess, more welcomed or more accepted between each other, but still in the same manner. It's a very controversial, topic.
hold
In the
on.
same manner, you don't want, outsiders, especially
Anybody.
Caucasians, to come and call us that. So it's a very complex topic when you talk about it. People discuss these things every day, and I don't know if it's ever going to be resolved. But that's the whole,
That's the
you
point.
know,
Do you think that African Americans and blacks in general are hypocrites for using those same words that were used to demean and degrade them in their music by glorifying themselves with them?
I don't really think they're hypocrites. As I've said, it has been appropriate over the years. So when you hear the
Hold on.
word,
When you say it has been by who, to who, and for who?
well, who do these kids look up to nowadays? I mean, over the years, who does the youth look up to?
Okay, and when you talk about the youth, you're not gonna separate them into groups of African Americans, Caucasians, Hispanics, and
No,
all the
because
rest.
hip hop is, if not the most, it's the most influential,
Thank you.
genre of music in the whole world.
And that is where my point and my arguments come from. So we have these artists that are African Americans or blacks that have this platform that is so huge across the whole world, listening to them, looking up to them, open to be influenced by them, that are supposed to tell the story, or that is supposed to push or portray us to the rest of the world how we believe in ourselves that we are. Here they are using these same words that were used against African Americans or blacks to degrade and to demean them, and telling each other that it's okay for us to say this thing amongst ourselves. Even in the music, tell me, is there any song that you have ever listened to that specifically said it's okay for you to call me my nigger, but somebody that's not a nigger should not call us nigger?
Not necessarily.
It,
However, hip hop was, as I said, was originated by black people, and it was a tool, or I guess it was a platform, for black people to relate to the most, as opposed to, other, racial backgrounds. However, because of how successful it has turned out over the years, now it's one of the leading genres of the world where every, ethnicity now listens to. So,
every ethnicity is listening to it, and and as an artist, I'm sure that they go to the studio recording songs, hoping that everybody accept those songs, and hoping that their audience or their listeners can relate to what they're singing, right?
well, most of these, hip hop rappers and musicians, I mean, they all are of a, African American background. So, and a lot of these rappers, grew up in the ghettos or, well impoverished areas. So the only people that I guess they're trying to reach out to are people in their communities, right? And people who are in their communities happen to be what? They happen to be
Wait,
black, majority, right?
wait. So you're telling me that these high earned artists, hip hop artists, like those that are on, excuse me, those that are on top of the chart, they only target to their
Most, if not all, most of them, yeah.
Their
especially the
only
ones
target is their community that they come
as far
from.
as the artists they want to reach.
Uh huh.
If not,
Are you assuming this, or is this something that any of them have
just
actually mentioned?
just trying to listen to some of the a few songs that come across the top of my head. Yeah,
And what suggests that to you? Because of the terminologies that they use
the
in those songs, right?
terminology, some of the the stories behind the lyrics that that's maybe only black people may be able to associate themselves with,
Okay,
as opposed to other audiences.
but me and you are not gonna sit here and act naive like they don't know that their songs are reaching
Of course, they know.
millions and millions out there.
The
And I
number
know
one,
that they're
the
not
number
sick.
one, the number one consumer, in terms of hip hop, that buy the most hip hop is Caucasian kids, as opposed to African kids.
Or even African American kids.
And when I say African, it could be anybody
Okay, you're talking
in
about
the
black kids.
in the diaspora. Doesn't matter where you
Okay.
are.
Okay. So if their biggest consumers are Caucasians. Okay, so here we are on one side. We are struggling. We are trying to get the rest of the world to to see us in a better light. To know that we are not what has been said about us all these years. We are people that come with substance. We are more than the N word, and we are more than the B word, and the females are more than the H word.
Well, you have. Okay,
And
go ahead.
and here we have the opportunity to talk to these same people that we continuously need them to see us differently, and we are telling them in our music with the words. I haven't even gone into the music videos. Here we are telling them with our words in our music that we are what you said we are, but we feel better about it because it's not coming from you, it's coming from us. You don't think that's hypocritical?
As I said, it's a very complex and very controversial topic that we can talk about this for the rest of our lives, but I don't think it's ever going to be resolved because this same topic, is ran across radio stations and TV stations every day across America and worldwide, but nobody has ever seemed to come, to a conclusion, to agree to disagree, or I guess I should say, disagree to agree, you know. So when you talk about it being hypocritical, I think that most of these musicians and artists, when they are, portraying themselves, I think they're portraying themselves first and mostly when they're, singing or making these, rap songs. But then again,
Wait, you said they're portraying themselves to be what?
portraying themselves in whichever, manner they are, the music is directing it to. So let's say, like Rick Ross, for example, is saying, look at me, young rich nigga in a Lamborghini or a Aston Martin. He's basically saying himself that he has acquired success or wealth, and now him by sitting in a Lamborghini, is reaping the fruits of his labor, of his hard, labor. So it's not doesn't necessarily mean that he thinks he is less of a human being by addressing himself as a nigga, but he's just describing himself.
So in these songs, they suggest that if if we ourselves, or if a black calls a black the N word or a nigger, that's okay.
In a way, yes.
In a way, in what way?
How can I explain this?
I don't know, but you should. I'm listening.
Say, okay, nigga, Negro, to a lot of us, I guess to a lot of African Americans and Black Americans, even Africans, it all means the same to us. And as I mentioned just earlier in the show about Negro, Negro being a color of black, right? And that's what we all are. African people, we're all Negroes.
Okay.
So when you're associating yourself with the term, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're trying to degrade yourself. You're just describing your ethnic background and, basically your racial background, what you are, which is a Negro.
So are you saying that?
So I think a lot of these rappers and a lot of these hip hop fans know that the association between Negro and a nigga is practically almost the same thing because when you think about a nigga, you think about somebody who is of African descent or black, right? So when you hear those, words in, in music, videos or songs, it's just basically somebody trying to associate themselves with a particular racial background or, uh, skin color of black or geographical background, which is a Negro.
Okay, so then why the offense when somebody that is not of that ethnic group or that race use
Because
that term? If it is just suggesting,
because in the past, those very same people have, I guess, used those words to inflict a lot of like degradation, a lot of pain
you're talking
into us.
about Caucasians, according to
Caucasian,
history.
Caucasian, Latinos, anybody outside of the black race has been known to use those words or those very terms to degrade us or to make us feel less than.
I still come down to, so are you saying that a word is defined by the person using it?
Well, in the same fashion of how I guess it made us feel, how it made such a negative effect. Because back in those days when colonizers came to Africa to collect African Americans, who were Africans back there, who are African Americans today, to bring them in as slaves. Of course, they didn't have any power or any control as far as how they wanted to be treated because they basically took them by force. And how they came over there and I guess indoctrinated them and brainwashed them into believing that they're less than. It's another story. That's a whole another, that's a whole another show. But, however, the power of which they demanded, or I guess they made our forefathers and foremothers feel less than or feel like animals, which basically we
Because
were
of the
we were we
terminologies
were
that
pro-
they
yeah
used,
we were
right?
property to them. So because of that, I think, like today, if a Caucasian or a non-African uses that term, of course we have every right to be offended
Okay,
because of the history behind it.
okay. Be- so that word is negative from the root of it.
From the root of it, yes.
Okay,
But moving forward, as I said it earlier,
it's
pop
okay for
culture,
us
because pop
because
culture
pop culture has
has
made
made it
it.
appropriated for us, the black community, to use it.
That's what.
However, you are always free, to feel otherwise and
So let me
feel.
ask you, if your friends refer to you with that word, would you be okay?
I personally don't use it,
I said if your
but
friends refer to you by that term, would you be
if
okay?
my friends, none of my friends have,
I didn't
I
say have
usually.
they. I said listen to my question. If your friends use that term for you, will you be okay with that?
I'll probably just find it amusing and then ask them why they would have called me that because, people that I'm surrounded, by, they don't really use that term because, African immigrants, especially the ones that come here from Africa, they're not really, I guess, into the pop culture like that, or I guess they're not really, you know, in terms of like the hip hop and the rap music, that these black Americans or these young African kids, are fascinated by. They don't share those same interests. So they really wouldn't have the need to use that word.
Okay, so then let me ask.
Even though they may listen to those songs, they wouldn't have the need to use those words. However, yes, I have been addressed by, African Americans here, even the ones that I'm still friends with up to this day, that I went to school with. Sometimes I do get addressed as a nigga. However, I do not find it offensive, and because growing up as a kid with them, that is how we all addressed each other. But we weren't trying to offend each other or insult each other. It was just, culture appropriation.
So if you see me like, if you ever hear me like on live calling myself a bad B, like using the B word for myself, right? And I post all around saying that, oh, I'm a bad B, I'm a bad B. And then you meet me outside and somebody address me by that word and I get angry. Do you think that I have the right to be?
Once again, culture appropriation. Rap music, especially these female rappers, like Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, have kind of made it, appropriate for women to address each other as that.
And when you as a person, as an individual, if you see a female like referring to themselves as that, what comes to mind? Like, what do you think of that female? Honestly, that calls themselves or refers to themselves with such words.
Well, me personally, I'll probably say that they may not carry that much self-respect for themselves. Um,
Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
what else do you want me to say?
Oh no, I said just be honest, and you were honest.
Yes,
And
but however,
don't defend it.
culture appropriation and pop culture has appropriated the term. So now, even if you use it, people know, especially hip hop fans know that it's not associated with being, it's just in a way or manner how you, I guess, use the word or in which fashion use the word.
I me
I guess
here,
it makes it
like,
appropriate.
hold
Just
on.
like you have so many.
Hold on. I've heard some of these songs, some of these music, and I've seen people refer to themselves as that, and I know, oh, I I know the message that they are saying out there to themselves with these words, but at no point whatsoever. It doesn't matter what mood I'm in. It doesn't matter what time of day I'm in. It doesn't matter my relation to the person that it's about to use. But if you refer to me with such words, either the B, the H, or the N, there is no way I would be okay with that.
Let me ask you this: Are you a big hip hop fan or rap fan?
I listen. I listen to some that don't use those words.
But would you consider yourself to be a fan?
I'm not a fan because of those terminologies.
Exactly. So you or somebody who may be, a big hip hop fan may feel, well, definitely, I'll say they'll probably feel very, very different in terms of their opinion and in terms of, how they view those things. You, just stating that you're not a hip hop fan, of course, I can definitely see yourself, being offended by those terms. But somebody who is a big, hip hop fan who listen to hip hop every day, I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't find,
Are
any.
you a hip hop fan or a rap fan?
Over the years, especially growing up, as a youth in America, yes, I was a very, very, very much a hip hop fan.
Okay.
Had so many CDs, back in the day of so many various rap artists and hip hop artists as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even you being a fan, when I asked you if you were to see a female referring to themselves as that, even with all the influence that those music has had on you, you told me that you would think that she probably think less of herself or something like that, right?
Yes.
So, like,
However, as I said, culture appropriation. I mean, you can hate it or you can love it however much you want, but
My
culture appropriation has made so many things, so normal, and it's just not in
okay,
hip hop
so
or
just
rap.
because pop culture makes it normal, does that make it right though? That
No.
from the very beginning of this conversation, even before we came on cameras, I was telling you. So okay, to me, what I see is somebody took us and put us on the left side where you are. And it was very difficult. It was very challenging. It was demeaning. It was degrading. It was all the negative feelings and negative things that you can possibly think of. And by the grace, we've broken off from there. And we are not even all the way away from it. And we constantly are fighting to get away from it. And these same people that are saying that we want to get away from it, we take the back route and go stand there and say, okay, it's okay for us to go stand there because it's not these people that are putting us there. Does that make it right? And I'm asking you your opinion. Because I know how you feel, I know what you think, you've said so many things to me, but even though pop culture is saying this, do you think that it's right? that pop culture is saying this? Because not only you were born, you mentioned the 90s, right? Okay, somebody that was born in the 20s too probably feels the same way about what you're saying because they also grew up in this pop culture. So is it right that pop culture makes these things acceptable? Like, so when you go out, and I think before I even let you talk and make like answer my question, when you look at these music videos, there are a certain way that they portray the African Americans to look like, which is so demeaning for both genders, for males and females. Here we are, like you see these females dressed down. I'm not even gonna say dress up because they don't. Some of them hardly even have clothes on. And then these artists also know they have in mind like their biggest audience are the youth, like the young ones, watching them, learning from them, wanting to be them, doing everything that they see them doing on camera. And they put everything that we've been teaching or we've been taught to not do out there that is normal, and we're doing this, and at the end we make money out of this. So here we are, we have all these young people like, I mean, doing the same things that we see in those music videos. So to you, like with all that said, do you still think it's right that pop culture makes these things normal? Like from the terminologies used, from the videos, and from like
Well,
what we put ourselves out there to be. Because somebody living in, let's say somebody living in India, Afghanistan, that has never seen or experienced the life in America before, right? They watch this music video, and then that's how they see, oh, these are the black Americans from the music video. So that's what they see and they know of African Americans. So if they see you and they have that mindset about you, how is that wrong?
well, are you saying that pop culture? Are you blaming pop culture for how I guess the kids or the youth are being raised today?
I'm well, in a way, yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I think that at the end of the day, how kids are raised is you can't, I guess, let the TV or entertainment or pop culture raise your kids. I think it's still up to the parent to, I guess, still have some sort of control. Even though, as parents, you don't have, the power to be around your kids 24/7 or see everything that they do
In
and
control.
control exactly what they see or, what they do. But at the end of the day, I mean, pop culture is going to be pop culture. They're going to do whatever they want. It's entertainment. It's an entertainment business to them. So they're going to make money in whichever way or however means, it's necessary for them to make the money. It's this very famous phrase that, it's used out there in the entertainment world that sex sells. I mean, when you turn on your TV, you turn on, the internet, you go on Facebook, you go on social media, what do you always see, as you just mentioned? You always see, women who are, wearing basically next to nothing. Always this, exposing themselves, exposing their private parts, doing anything, to just get some, clout, trend on social media, because that's what internet entertainment wants. That's what social media wants.
And
They
that's
want,
the norm that all
sex
the youth.
sells, okay?
Okay.
So I mean, they're gonna do whatever they can do, in order to rise and come up, to a certain level, of fame, and wealth. So at the end of the day, I mean, you can't really say if pop culture is right or wrong. I mean,
Oh, you can't.
if you're talking from a moral,
I
sta-
no no
a moral standpoint,
no. I asked you this question before I went off about all the music video. I said to you personally, from what you know, from what you experience, do you think that it's right that pop culture portrays those things
from a
out
moral from a moral standpoint,
no,
no. From a moral
but
standpoint,
from an
no.
entertainment
And
standpoint?
us being religious and Christians, definitely no. But from entertainment standpoint, at the end of the day, it's entertainment, right? So what is entertainment? Entertainment is entertaining the audience, entertaining society. So if you want to entertain society and you want society to, because at the end of the day, it's all about money. You're doing all of these things to, I guess, to generate money for yourself or for your family. So if you are, a rapper, a dancer, musician, or whatever, And the only way for you, to reach the audience is to, negatively portray or stereotype yourself in a negative manner. I mean, of course, you're gonna do it. I mean, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, all those female rappers have said it, several ways that, sex sells and the way they portray themselves is what is making them money. So they're gonna continue doing it until it's not a thing, that's trending or, it's not something that is pop culture anymore. So,
Well, before we go on, walk down memory lane because you just said that at the end of the day, parents are still responsible for raising their children, even though they don't have the power to be with them 24 hours a day. Walk down memory lane when you were a teenager. What your parents were saying versus what you were seeing on TV, what was more relevant to you, or what was more relatable, or what was more enticing, or what did you relate to the most that you lived according to?
you asking what my parents saw or what did I saw
You,
growing up?
you.
What I seen growing up versus today,
No, no, I'm saying what your parents said to you
or what they said.
when you were a teenager, when you were younger, what your parents were saying to you or were raising you by, like the things that they used to tell you to do this, don't do that, versus what you saw on TV in pop culture and doing this and that. Which one was more relatable and more relevant to you that you listened to? Was it your parents or was it what pop culture portrayed?
Definitely what my parents told me. I mean, looking at myself today, probably want to say if it wasn't for my parents, I don't know where I would be.
Okay.
I'd probably be, a wayward child or
If
an
you were
adult
raised on pop culture.
if I was raised on pop culture. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I never listened. I loved hip hop growing up as a kid. Middle school and high school, that's all I used to listen to.
How did you
But at
dress?
the end of the day, my parents were a very big influence in my life. And they, led me on the right path, They told me what to do and what not to do and not let this, negative influence, partake or I guess take over my life.
But
So
what
at the end of
what
the day, I think it's also up to the child or up to the youth to also, I guess, use their heads in a way, or use their common sense and apply wisdom. Yes, apply wisdom into their lives. So if you, as a youth, if you're lucky or fortunate enough to have both of your parents in your life, and being like how I was as a youth, growing up as a youth, loving hip hop and loving rap music, but at the same time still having a positive influence in my life with my parents. I think that you're still going to be able to grow up in a well manner way, and you still might be able to have the chance to grow up and be an outstanding citizen in society.
I'm sure when you were younger and your parents were telling you do this and do that, I'm sure that you were not so much in love with their ways. I'm sure that you
No,
somehow.
but once again, once I grew up, especially now, thinking back on the many things that my parents opposed me of doing. I mean, nowadays I'll always find myself thanking them, for opposing some of the things that I wanted to do, restricting me from certain things that which back then I never understood, but now I'm very thankful for what they have done for me. So
Well, I'm glad that you've grown enough to understand that your parents had your best interest at heart and everything that was portrayed on pop culture wasn't right. But thank you for being here today.
you're welcome.
Conversation was very interesting. Your point of view was very interesting as well. Some point
So have we agreed or not?
I, I told you before we came to this show on live that I think there are certain conversations that we are always gonna agree to disagree because at no point do I feel like it's okay. And as I told Nana before the show, it doesn't matter if you are black, white, yellow, green, purple. I would never appreciate it if you use that nigger term for me because I believe that is a disrespect to my personality and I believe that there is more to me than just what that word suggests. So I'm not gonna agree, and I also definitely don't agree with pop culture that what they portray out there is good. It can always be about money, but in life we don't really separate out
Right.
situations. Because even as you're making money, you still have these lives that you know very well that you're influencing. So when you have the platform and when you have the opportunity to be teachable to these people that are to follow that are young, You want to put them on the right path. You want to put some light on there. And when we talk about legacy, that's what legacy is all about. These people are busy building legacies with money and materialistic things, but they're breaking down values and morals of these young youth, and that is really hurting and doing society so much bad than it is doing us good. When you see somebody in these videos, some like even the male, that they put, that's one side part about it too. You see all these guys like wearing clothes. Sometimes you even see them wearing jacket and all that. Yet these females has, like you said, almost nothing on, and they are selling that. And these people too, I'm sure that some of them have children, but I'm sure they're not telling them to dress up like that. And they're trying to tell them something different. Yes, they're telling somebody else's children that this is what sells, this is what's good, this is what's out there. And these children are so busy following that too. And most of them end up like being a distraction to their lives and what they could potentially be in the future by what they are portraying. So I don't think we're ever gonna agree if you still stand on where you started your point from. Um, One thing that I would say I definitely learned is, you know, um, with the African Americans and the way that we Africans tend to see them or portray them, it's not always been in a pleasant light, and we have to do better at that. Like they are still people, but they also have to do better. Like if somebody sees you negatively, you have to. You're not obligated to, but you have to, in a way, show them
Show them.
that you are not what they think you are. But if you're going to consistently and continuously do that, we have no one to blame but ourselves. So I know that before we go, Nana wanted to just come on stage and say something because she felt so passionate about this terminology. So we're going to let her come and have her like moment of fame and say what she wants to say about the nigger versus a nigger. And you know, I told you earlier, like with an African with our accent, when we say a nigger and a nigger, we like you can't even differentiate because we are not gonna like it's all gonna sound alike and they're all gonna mean the same thing. So there's no need for us to even try to make one seem like it's positive and one seem like it's negative. So
Yes, it's a very, as I said, it's a very controversial and complex topic. You can have this discussion every day for the rest of our lives, but we're never going to come to a conclusion in terms of how it's supposed to be used or whether it's supposed to be used or not. Because, as I said, pop culture has made it, okay. But then again, there's people outside of pop culture, who may have, certain values or morals, for themselves that wouldn't want it to be associated with themselves. So,
okay.
yeah,
Well,
it's just one
thank
of those things.
it's one of those things, huh?
Yeah.
One of these days, I pray that God will like enlighten you to see it differently. So Nana, just come on and just let the audience know how you feel about the nigger and the nigger, and we are gonna end this show. Please remember to subscribe if you've not subscribed to the channel. Please follow our social media handles. Facebook is Owusua TV. Instagram is Owusua TV as well. YouTube is Owusua TV. Please subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Follow us. And thank you. So Nana, you're so passionate. So you wanna come stand here so
Yeah,
we can
sure.
see you well. And just let us know what you wanted to say.
Me personally, I agree with you on your end. I understand what you're trying to say, but I personally feel like if if you're of African American descent or are African, then you can say it. Like personally, if you were to come up to me and say it, I would not be offended. But if you were of any other
To
race,
say what?
nigger or nigga,
Okay, so if I see you every day and say, hey my nigga, you okay?
yeah,
Why?
I don't see it as an offense because of
So
how
when I say, what does it mean to you?
like friend or homie. I guess some people say homie, some people say friend.
So why can't you use that term, homie or friend? Why do you have to use nigga?
I mean, you don't have to, but people like African Americans have reclaimed that word because of its negative connotation from times of slavery.
And so that makes it okay to use it now. Do
For
you think
African
that you can
Americans,
go up
yes.
to your dad and say, hey my nigga, what's up?
No, because I would lose my life.
Okay, why is that? I mean, you are black too, and your dad is black.
Yes.
So why would you lose your life?
That's, I guess it's because it's just disrespectful. You just probably wouldn't want to say that to someone like him.
Okay, so can you go say hi, my nigga, to who else?
I mean, like if they're black and they said it to me, I'm comfortable. I would say it to you because you are black, but I'm not gonna.
Well, don't say it to me,
Well,
cause you
no,
probably
no.
lose your life too.
No. Like I don't usually say it like that, but
Do you use those words?
like as a joke, yes.
So will
Well,
you
like
be okay
me
if
and
I
like
use
friends
the B
joke.
and the H word for you?
No.
Why? Cause in this same music video, when the men are calling themselves niggas, the females are calling, and those same men call the females the B word and the H word.
Yeah.
As a joke.
Mm.
Will you be okay?
No. I
You
do
know.
get what you're saying though. You just think that it shouldn't be used. Period.
But
And-
you think that it should be used if you're being funny.
Well, I feel like because, like you said, within African descent, it's not.
That's what I'm saying. So it's okay if I use it for you in a funny way.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Even the B word.
No.
Why not? I
Well,
mean, I'm
that-
being funny or I'm joking with you. I don't mean it. I'm just saying it so we could be relatable. See? Okay. All right, Nana. So finally, what would you say to everybody about the N word and the B word and pop culture? Do you think it's good? They should continue promoting what's out there?
Honestly, I think it should just stop, because then other people who aren't a part of the black community will feel comfortable, and that's just very offensive if you're not a part of the black community to use that term. So it really shouldn't be spread out. That's why I also agree with you in some parts, because it shouldn't be spread out like that, because then people will feel like deem it as okay because everybody else is saying it and it's being out there. It's like being spread out there. So people feel like, well, then I can say it. So it should stop. But personally, like if he were to call me a nigger right now, I probably wouldn't be as offended.
I will be offended if you use that term for you. But okay. Thank you. I will step on your feet after the show. So thank you, Nana. Thank
Thank you.
you. Uh-huh. All
Thank
right,
you, Nana.
everyone. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Oscar, before you leave, what do you have to say to our audience,
Excuse me?
the young and the adults that are watching us today about the whole topic?
Yeah, it's Kojo.
If you're going to say Kojo, please say it well.
Yeah, Kojo. I guess the last message to the youth is, as I said, do not, if you have, fortunate enough to still have your parents in your life, do not allow pop culture to raise you. In the same manner, I know it's a form of entertainment. You all find, some kind of consolation in it, when we listen to our favorite artists or musicians. But in the same manner, do not let it, I guess, allow it to, make some certain influence or decision in your life. Your parents have the best interest for you and they want the best for you. So when they tell you to do certain things, just listen to them. I know that it's hard because you may feel like they come from different backgrounds and may not be able to understand you. But in the same manner, they really do want the best interest for you. I'm a prime example, growing up here in America, growing up with them, I didn't agree with everything they used to tell me, but, now, being 31 years old, looking back, I kind of understand where they're coming from, because nowadays I find myself in their very same shoes, so just listen to your parents and, do, what is best, and also focus on your future. So I guess that's all I have to say.
For the children, now for the parents.
Yeah, for the children.
And now for the parents.
Advice for the parents?
Concerning like the whole topic.
Parents, I guess, all I can say is try to understand your children. When they're, listening to all this, songs and music, even though I know that you may hate it, when they're listening to those things, but in the same manner, a lot of us, as I said, we found, some sort of comfort or some kind of liberation when we were listening to those songs. So in the same manner, we're going to try not to, live by, that lifestyle or be influenced by, those things that we see, especially in the music videos. So I guess parents, all I can say is just try to understand your children and, be more open-minded to them, but in the same manner, bring them, up in the way of the Lord, especially, Christian parents. Bring your children up in the way of the Lord so that they'll, as they grow up, they'll be, I guess, outstanding citizens to society. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Definitely appreciate you. Enjoyed the conversation. I know it was heated a little bit, but that's part of life. We all have.
Definitely. Thank you for having I'm a lovely host.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us and spending this time to discuss this very controversial nigger versus nigger with us. I know that some we probably didn't hit on all the points that somebody or someone might have been thinking of, but we only had so much time to discuss everything. So as we concluded, sometimes we just have to agree to disagree, and that is where we're going to leave it off. But I'll definitely say this to the young ones. I normally don't give advice at the end because I'm the host, but definitely on this topic, I want to tell the young ones what you see out there in pop culture, the way that they dress, the language that is used. When it's negative, it's negative. It doesn't matter who is saying it and who is receiving it. It is what it is. Black is always going to be black and white will always be white. It doesn't matter who is coming from. Please be advised. If these things are influencing you and you're degrading yourself by referring to yourself with those terminologies, please stop, because you're more than that. And especially for the females, being a B word and an H word, that is definitely not something to glorify yourself with. There is more to you than what those words suggest that they are. And parents, as always, please, like you said, let's try to be more understanding of our children. And I believe that when we're younger, we are like hard-headed, but as we grow up, we are more like you than you probably think that we are. And we start understanding the things that you told us. So thank you so much. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel on Owusuwa TV. Again, it's Owusuwa TV. Follow us on Facebook and on Instagram at Owusuwa TV. Please remember ONO Signature. We sell everything from dresses for women, for men, for children, everybody of all ages and sizes. We have accessories from necklace to bracelet, waist beads, and purses, wallet, sandals, anything you can think of that is African made. Please contact ONO Signature at 469-769-2306. Again, it's 469-769-2306. You can also follow us on social media on Facebook and on Instagram at OO Signature. Again, it's OO Signature, just like that. Thank you so much. And also, our last announcement, we have a book review coming up. And so please meet us in September. There will be a giveaway. There will be so much going on in September. So please remember to tune in every time. And finally, Mr. Tipsy said, this is a great talk. Each person brings great points. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful rest or have a wonderful week. And see you for the next We Need to Talk. Thank you.
Abedimpo, Kwame Kofi Kinata, move on baby, move. Honanana. Abedimpo.